All right, so today I'm going to talk about double sleeving and triple sleeving options and why you might want to consider doing it, especially if you're using your decks for play. And the first thing you'll ask is probably, why would you want to triple sleeve your deck or even double sleeve your deck? You know, it's like putting like a condom on your cards, right? You know, why be so anal about it? You might as well put it in like a glass case while you play it. But there are reasons. The most important one, right? If you're single sleeving your cards, this is what happens. You have a raw card and you put it into like a regular sleeve and then you push it in there or whatever it is, right? So when you only single sleeve your cards, what happens is you have an opening on top and then, you know, dust could get in there. When you're shuffling your deck, you know, another card could enter this opening and start chipping away at these cards. So that's why you see a lot of people, if they single sleeve their cards or if they're selling their cards online, they're played because that's where all the whitening comes from. And just over time, if you have dust, debris, whatever garbage like gets in there, you know, if you're damaging your card, is getting scratched over time. It's just getting worn out over time as you play with your cards. Not to mention, if you have water getting in there, you're boned. You're just screwed because if water gets in there, then there's nothing protecting your card from water damage. And I'm actually gonna put, you know, a single sleeve, double sleeve, and a triple sleeve card in water to just kind of show you what's the difference between you putting a card in getting water damage when it's single sleeve or triple sleeve or double sleeve, and the difference on how much protection you actually get. Another reason as to why is if you have character sleeves, so some character sleeves like the comic kit sleeves are more rare or they're more expensive and you don't want to damage them or lose them, right? So that's why you would want to at least double sleeve and have an oversleeve over there. And then, you know, and another outside of the actual worth of your if I can find it, outside the actual worth of the actual, you know, deck itself, you also have to consider, you know, if you have some foils like, you know, Gate of Babylon, Gilgamesh, where you just really can't find these and they're like $60 to $80 singles. You know, would you really want cards like these to potentially get damaged? If I mean, some people might not want to run max rarity decks or, you know, higher rarity decks, but if you are, why wouldn't you want to have the maximum amount of protection for your cards? As for double sleeving, right? So that's like the most basic one. If you're just looking the double sleeve, it actually is pretty much enough for most people, to be honest. So what double sleeving, what you do is you pretty much just have your card and you're putting it so that the opening is on the actual bottom itself. So when you have the opening on the bottom, what you do is you actually slide your cards into the sleeves here. And then so that way, if any kind of dust gets in, it's not going in from the top and you're not worrying about it getting damage from the top, right? The only way damage can happen is if anything goes in through the bottom, which since you're putting it into the actual sleeve, you're protected. The trick to doing this is you don't want to push it in, because what happens is if you try to push it in, you'll see that the card actually comes out from the bottom, and then that's not what you want, right? Because then, you know, it's sliding out of sleeve and you don't have that seal. So what you want to do is, instead of trying to push it in from the top, you're putting it in this way. And once you have it reasonably in, what you do is just like slide your finger in and you kind of just tuck it in from there. And once you tuck it in, there you go. You have like that seal where, you know, it's closed in. So even if water gets in, it has to go all the way through it. And then, so this is the KMC Perfect Fit Sleeves. There's other brands, but I've tried them, like the Dragonshield ones. I just don't like them at all. And overall, I would recommend KMC for the most part for almost anything. They just get it right, and that's why so many people use it. As for the actual sleeves itself, there's just regular Dragonshield sleeves that you could find like on like Amazon or something like that. They're like less than $10 each. There's nothing really special about it. So again, we're leaving this as the one double sleeve card. And then just to have a control in the group for the experiment of putting this in water, this is going to be the one single sleeve card here, just to show you what type of damage you could potentially see. And then next, we're going to look at the actual, you know, triple sleeving. So why would you want a triple sleeve? Again, when you're triple sleeving, the reasoning behind it is because you just want that extra layer of protection. Although After I triple sleeve this card, I'll actually show you. It actually makes your deck a lot thicker, and depending on if you feel comfortable or if it bothers you that it's harder to shuffle, that's something to consider as well too. So again, when you're double sleeving, you want to put it in this way, and then you just kind of slide it in and tuck it in from the back. After a while, you just kind of get used to it. One thing with double sleeving as well too, there is air pockets in there. So what you want to do is you want to just kind of just squeeze them out or flatten it out. What I like to do normally when I have the whole deck double sleeved afterwards is I like to just have, two, I guess like anything on the side to just like press the cards together to just kind of get the air out to flatten it out. Because if you don't flatten it out with all the air in, your deck is going to, a 50 card deck could be like this high. And just to quickly show you how thick a double sleeve deck is compared to a triple sleeve deck, a triple sleeve deck is actually this thick, and then a double sleeve deck is, this thick. So it's slightly thinner, but as for the actual thickness of it, it's a lot thicker. So it's just something to consider. The feel of it might not be as good to shuffle, but I opted for the matte and clear with the KMC as opposed to the other option that I found was the Z's, which I'll kind of go over as well too. But overall, I do recommend the matte and clears. So the two options I found were the Z's and the matte and clears, right? So with the matte and clears, pretty much you're just looking for the standard size. So the standard size is the 69 by 94. It's like 94, 93 roughly. And then the Z's are actually a lot tighter because it's that 1 millimeter difference, which I'm gonna actually show you, right? So when you're triple sleeving, what you're actually doing is, so with the matte and clears, you have the clear side on the front and then the matte side on the back, which is a little bit blurred out. So you want the opening to be on top, and you're sliding it in. So you have that extra layer of protection, right? So in this case, the opening inside the sleeve is on the bottom for the inner sleeve, which is the perfect fits, right? And on the second layer, you have the on top where this is sealed in, and then the third layer is the triple one. And then again, same thing, you have a lot of air in here, which you're gonna just have to like squeeze out over time. And the solution I actually found to it was actually with my deck, I just put a bunch of bulk cards in there once I have my deck in there, and to put it tight but not too tight to the point where your cards are bending, and you're just squeezing that air out so that way it's not really poofed up, because when you initially do it, it gets really high. So this is with the KMC ones, right? And I'm going to show you the Z ones just to show you what the difference is. So I bought these initially because someone recommended it, and it is a lot thicker, but remember when I said that it's actually 1 millimeter smaller than the KMC. So this is 93 millimeters, and then this one is actually 1 millimeter smaller on all dimensions as opposed to the 69, 40, 69, nice. And then the difference between this is that these are very thick, and again, I already double sleeved one of the cards, and then since it's not matte on one side or another, so pretty much, again, since it's 1 millimeter smaller, it's actually a very tight fit. And the problem I actually had with this is that on some of the cards that I had, depending I guess on the actual fitting, I saw these like wavy patterns on the cards, and overall, since these are so much thicker, I guess you really can't tell on the camera, but it's so much thicker that it just makes it very hard to shuffle the deck overall. I mean, as for actual protection, I feel like it actually provides a lot of protection. The corners on these are actually very sharp. It's like a hard type of plastic. So I mean, if you're only double sleeving, I guess it's fine. So if you're putting your card raw into the sleeve itself, and then you're gonna put and then not have an inner sleeve, then it's fine, right? But if you're triple sleeving, I probably don't recommend it. And just to kind of have a control group as well too, I'll also show you what it's like in regards to protection if you were to only double sleeve it into this as well too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have another trip hinge. This one's gonna be just single sleeved in here. If I could get it in. And then single sleeved. And then I'm just gonna have it go into the oversleeve here. So it's technically still only double sleeve, but it's gonna have the oversleeve on there. And I guess I'll show you what the damage would be like, as well as I'm gonna do one with the matte and clear as well too. So again, it's a double sleeve, but instead of having it on the Perfect Fit double sleeve, we're gonna put the card raw into this, and then we're gonna have one into a matte and clear as well, just so we have all the variety, so you see what kind of damage could possibly happen in there. All right, and I'll cut here while I get I guess like a bucket of water, and then we're gonna test this out. And before I actually submerge the stuff in water, I actually want to show you what I mean by the cards puffing up. So this is the triple sleeve with the KMC Hyper Mattes, right? So you see how the deck is kind of poofed up. So what you do is I take like the dividers on each side, so when I'm pressing I don't damage the card. And you just kind of press it together, and then that will kind of get the air out. And over time, if you actually have other cards in there, it's gonna actually, so what I do is I take like a bunch of bulk cards and cards from the side of my deck, and then I just kind of put them in there over time. If I could just kind of get this right. So these are cards I actually care about, so I'm not gonna squeeze it in. So you kind of just get them in there like that. So it's still sort of like a kind of a tight fit, but you know, it's still not getting all the air out. So what I do is I just grab like a bunch of Pokemon bulk that I don't care about, and I just kind of pack it to a certain point where it's not too tight where, you know, it's bending to a certain extent, but it's tight enough that it's not letting the deck expand. So this is kind of already enough. So I kind of just slip it in there. There you go. And then if you just leave it in there for a little bit, it'll kind of get like the air out for the most part. You don't want to pack it too tight where it might end up like bending a little bit, but you want it, you know, tight enough that it's not having enough room to expand into like a whole, you know, 100 card deck size. All right, so before we start, let's just go over what we did, right? So we have the KMC Perfect Fit Inner sleeves, and then we have the Dragonshield Matte, and that's the regular sleeves. Or you could use character sleeves, but it's pretty much the same thing. And then we have the KMC Matte Clears, which is the Oversleeve, which is the triple sleeve layer. And then we have the Z Guard, you know, also overlayer as well too, but that one's the one that's a little bit thicker and tighter. And before we dip all these into the water, I feel like a horrible person doing this, but for science, I guess, right? So we have the KMC Perfect Fits, and these are the control groups. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 variations of how cards could be sleeved. We have the raw card going into the Dragon Shields. So there's no protection there. Pretty much it should have the most damage when it goes into water. And the most common one, which would be a Perfect Fit Inner sleeve into the Dragon Shields. So you have the 2 layers of protection. And then these are the regular double sleeve scenarios where you're having the, well, I guess, yeah, double sleeve. So I'm putting the card raw into the Dragon Shields, and then the oversleeve, I'm using this one is going to be the matte and clear. So the opening for the card is actually on top inside the sleeve, but the opening is on the bottom because we put the oversleeve there. So there should be an extra layer of protection. And the third one, we have the variation of same thing, the raw card into the dragon sleeves. There's no inner sleeve there. And then this is just with the Z Guard ones as an oversleeve, where the sleeve for the Dragon Shield is opening on top, so there's no opening on the bottom. But the opening on the bottom here is where we slip in to the Z Guards. And the last one should be the most protection, where these are the triple sleeve cards, where this is the matte and clear on the outside, and inside we have the KMC Perfect Fits, as you see here. So the opening is on the bottom of this. in the inside, and then oh look, there's dust in there. And then on the inside of this, so we have opening on the Perfect Fit on the bottom, and then on the actual Dragonshield, the opening is on the top. And then on the bottom of here, where we on since we triple sleeved it of the hyper mats, is on the bottom here. So the water had to go in and then up through there if it managed to squeeze through, and then into the card, and then make its way through the bottom of the Perfect Fits. And it's the same scenario with the Z guards here, where we triple sleeved it again with the Perfect Fit. Again, the bottom in the Perfect Fit is inside. That's where the opening is, and then on the top of there is where the opening for the Dragonshield is, and on the bottom of here is where the opening for the third sleeve is. I'm gonna have to probably change this to a hobby mat so I don't get my mat dirty and wet. And then let's go ahead and do the experiment. All right, so I've managed to not spill water all over my keyboard. So let's just go ahead and get this started. I'll probably dry them off after I get them out with some paper towels. So this is gonna be the raw card, and we'll probably submerge all these, like, I don't think it really takes that long, so give it like 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Again, you probably, after it's submerged, it really doesn't matter. It should already, you know, have the damage that you expect to begin with. So we'll dry that off. And then the next, this is the double sleeved. So with the inner sleeve and then into the Perfect Fit into the Dragonshield. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. We'll try to dry it off as much as possible. And this is with double sleeving without an inner sleeve. So we still have the outer sleeve. So this is 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So we'll get that out of there. And then this is double sleeving with the Dragonshield without having the inner sleeve. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And these are the Z guards, and you could tell because the Z guards are more clear as opposed to the hyper mats where it has like the matte back. And these are the triple sleeve, which would be the most protected. And this one is with the Perfect Fit inner sleeve. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I feel like a monster dipping cards into water, to be honest. But this is just, I guess, to show you like how much I actually don't even know myself, but it's just to show you how much protection you could possibly get from triple sleeving or double sleeving. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the triple sleeve with the Z guards. I don't actually expect there to be a difference between each type of them. So we'll go ahead, dry this off, and then we'll take each card out. All right, so let me just cut here. I'm actually going to remove the bowl of water before I break my keyboard and spill water everywhere. All right, so let's see which ones pass or fail. I could already tell that the actual, you can already see with the card raw, there's already water damage in there. So water slipped through the top. So you already see water damage slip through the top. So you definitely do not want a single sleeve, especially if you're worried about your cards getting damaged overall. And this one's a fail. So we'll cross out. You do not want to just raw into the sleeve. And this is with the Perfect Fit and the Dragonshield. So we'll go ahead, try that off. Yeah, no issues. Again, because the top is where the thing was, right? But then you do still see kind of where water kind of still gets through on the bottom even if you double sleeved it, depending on, I guess like for me it was kind of sitting there for a little bit, so water still kind of did a little bit of damage. So it's something you want to be aware of. So in regards to like dust, I would say like good, but as for actual water, I'm not really quite sure it gives you that level of protection. Of course, this is extreme, right? You're never gonna submerge it fully in water. So this is gonna be the double sleeve, but without an inner sleeve and only the pretty much the oversleeve with the raw card into the Dragonshield. And for this one, no. So overall, I would probably say I can't really tell if that was actually from a little bit of it, but it might just be cards getting dinged on the corner. But overall, I would say it's probably still better than the actual double sleeving in regards to just water damage. Because again, if you think about it, for the water to actually get into this, it would have to travel just through so many different layers, right? So you have the opening on the top here, and then here. So the water would actually have to travel through this, all the way through, and then into here as well too. So I would say it's still better than just double sleeving. And then this is probably just going to be the same thing as well too, with double sleeving with the Z. This one's with the Z guards. So the water did get like a little bit deeper into this one, but overall, we should see the same results. Yeah. So the water didn't really get through into this at all. Again, these like corners where you see like a little bit of like fraying on there, it might just be because of the cards were kind of dinged to begin with. So overall, I would say if you're gonna double sleeve, I actually would recommend having the oversleeve as opposed to just double sleeving like a perfect fit into a Dragonshield, just for the fact that if you double sleeve into the Dragonshield, you're just hoping that the water doesn't squeeze through the bottom there. Just to kind of show you the example again, because the water into the double sleeve, you are protected on the top, right? So I feel bad for this trip inch, but so if you tuck it in here and then into the Dragonshield, so you have that layer of protection. But the thing is, depending on how it's manufactured, you might have just like a smaller gap between this part. So if the water travels in and it's when you it might have been a mistake on my end, but when I sleeve it and I didn't, was very very careful and made sure that it was still on top while I tucked it in. If the car is very very close to the bottom, the water will still reach in. So you have to be careful about that. There are like still some variables. So overall, if you're not like too careful, the oversleeve might still be the better option as opposed to just double sleeving. And then this one, geez, the water got all the way in. This one is the triple sleeve one with the KMC oversleeve. So we have the triple sleeve here. And then let's just kind of dry it off. So this has 3 layers of protection. So again, the water would have to travel wherever the opening is. Let me find it. The water would have to travel in through the sleeve, then in through the sleeve, and then into the top of the sleeve, and then travel into that part. So it was just way more layers of protection where, the water would have to travel very, very, very far for it to even reach your card. And perfectly fine. Of course, like you see like certain shines on a card, but that's just because the card was already dinged to begin with. But overall, perfectly fine with the KMC triple sleeve. So KMC triple sleeve, if you're looking for just like maximum protection, so far that one's the one to go for. And then This one is with the Z's, which again were you could tell because they're clear as opposed to the KMC ones Oversleeve, which is matte on the back. And then I can already kind of tell you don't see any kind of water damage at all, just because you could see like it just requires it to travel so much further in order to reach it. Yeah, no damage at all. The whitening is just from the card whitening, then that had nothing to do with the water. But all right, so let me just clean this up and I'll wrap it up. All right, so to wrap it up, just to give you the results, as for what options I would suggest if you're looking to just protect your cards, the maximum amount of protection that you don't want your cards to get damaged, do not put your cards raw into the sleeve and then expect it to not get damaged. Outside of dust and debris, if any sort of water gets in, forget it, you're screwed. And then the second one is double sleeve. You could, but there's a margin for error there, right? And the margin was when I showed you that if you slip your cards into the sleeve here, where when you're pushing it into the inner sleeve, if you don't push it in properly, where you see like how there's like a little bit of gap there, so if water gets in, it's not immediately touching your card, right? But if, let's just say, you're pushing it in, you really don't care or whatever it is, and then okay, it's in there, and then you have your card sticking out, or it's like already on the edge of the sleeve. If water gets in there, you're still screwed, because once the water gets in, then the damage will still happen on that bottom piece of the card. Of course, like if you do it carefully, then okay, I'm gonna carefully slip this in there, and then for minor things like that, little bit of gap will be able to protect you. As for like regular dust and whatnot, you really shouldn't have any issues at all. Again, no kind of psychopath is ever gonna drench their cards in water. You're not gonna throw your deck into like a river, right? But it's just I just wanted to show you what kind of protection that you'll get. So I would say straight up double sleeving would be like what I have. How many more options? I have 3, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would say this is, out of all of them, I would say these 3 are pretty close together. I would say I would make this number 5, just because of the margin of error in regards to this. Whereas the other option was this one, right? Where the next option would be your card raw into the sleeve, and then if I could just find the opening for this, into the sleeve, and then into the oversleeve. In this case is the KMC, right? Surprisingly, this actually had a pretty good seal in there, because it's pretty similar to double sleeving, and there's not really a margin of error, right? You're just literally just pushing it in. So, the waters would still have to travel in here and then would have to get in through the top. Of course, it's still not 100% perfect, but as for like what I probably say it's better, this kind of double sleeving is better than, doing the double sleeving with the KMC into the Dragonshield. Probably, I would probably, if you're not too careful, I would probably say this is the type of double sleeving I would probably recommend. It's pretty tied, but I would say like these 2, I guess this would make it 4, because these 2 are pretty similar. So 3, and then it was the same thing with the Z's as well too, right? And the last one, these were pretty much 0 damage at all, and this was the triple sleeve. So again, the reasoning behind why triple sleeving you saw no damage with the card itself is because, so we're putting it into the inner sleeve. Again, this is already protected on top, openings on the bottom, and then you're putting it into the regular sleeves, which is Dragonshield, where again, right, you're slipping this in there, and then the opening is on top again for this sleeve, but the opening for the inner sleeve is on the bottom, so you already have this seal in there. The water would have to travel down all the way to the back of the card, all the way to the front of the card, and then into there. And then that's not to even mention that you have your oversleeve, which is another layer of protection. So outside that, the water would still have to travel all the way through this and into your sleeve as well too. So there's just so many layers where if you're looking for the maximum protection, triple sleeve is the way to go. One thing to kind of note down though, when you're pulling cards out of the KMC oversleeve, you actually have to slide your finger and pull it out, because actually with the hyper mats, if you try to push it out this way, it leaves marks on there and it'll pretty much make that oversleeve unusable, because if you try to do it that way, what's going to happen is it leaves marks on there, and if you're playing in tournaments or with your friends, they might think you're cheating or something, because I mean, you wouldn't want your sleeves marked up anyways, but they might think you're cheating because you're marking your cards or something like that. But that's something to be aware of. But pretty much that's it. This is exactly why, you know, if I'm playing my decks, even though it makes the decks a lot thicker and it's kind of weird, I still want to have them triple sleeve, because this is the maximum amount of protection, where if I'm running something like, you know, SPs, like foil cards in there, where, you know, it's something that I really care about, why wouldn't you want to protect it? It might make shuffling a little bit harder, but, you know, it just gives you that peace of mind that if something were to happen to your cards, then you don't have to worry about it. And again, right, so you're using the inner sleeve into the inner sleeve into the Dragonshield, and then you choose either the matte and clear or whatever oversleeve you prefer. But so far, out of all the brands that I tried between the Z and the matte and clear, I prefer the matte and clear a lot more, and I just like that feeling of shuffling in general. But just to be aware though, since it is matte, it does like blur out the character art a little bit, especially if you're using character sleeves. I hope this helped, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.